Welcome back, everyone, to Athletes Beyond the Mind. This week's topic is all about identity. So, who are you? Is kind of this week's topic. This is a little bit of a shorter one than we typically have. Who are you? That's such a simple question, but it's really important. And I'm not just talking about your name and all of that, because yeah, that's great to know too. Like, good to know your name, good for others to know your name. But I'm talking about more about your identities. And those identities can be something like you're someone's child, you're someone's sibling, maybe a strong identity of yours is friend, student, athlete, maybe where you work, other things that you do. All of those are identities. And those are all really important to know because if you know your identities, you know who you are, you can set goals that are important to you because they're who you are, they're related to who you are, and that's really all that matters. Something I always suggest to do is to write down your identities. Give yourself 2 to 3 minutes and write down anything that comes to mind. Student, athlete, daughter, sister, dog owner, soccer player, runner, athletic, like things like that. Those are just a few examples, but you can go off of that and just do as many as you can think of. A big one for me is reader, and it didn't used to be. I mean, I always loved to read, but I wouldn't say a salient or important or obvious identity of mine was ever being a reader. But now that my identities of student and athlete aren't really there, that one's become more important to me. And that's something you should do. Think about even the small things that are important to you and how that relates to an identity of yours and move forward from there. So you should have a list of quite a few, at least five. I'm going to say at least five is what you should have. And see which ones are the most important. If you listed some that are like, yeah, they're an identity of mine, but they're not super important. Which ones are super important? And so what used to be for me was student, athlete, daughter, and sister. Those were the four most important ones for me. And so those are the ones I should be setting goals related to. Those are the ones I should be working on. Those are the ones that keep me and my mindset strong. Those are the ones that will help me when I'm struggling on a bad day or when my emotions are out of whack. Understanding those identities help me just in life in general. I used to have a lot of goals for student athlete, like how could I be a better soccer player? How could I do this? How can I reach certain goals? No pun intended, related to soccer. And student had high expectations of the grades I wanted, of the college I wanted to go to, the grad school I wanted to go to, and then that connected to my career goals as well. And now my identities have greatly changed. Now it's counselor, reader, still daughter and still sister. Those are still really big up there. Dog owner is always really big, or pet owner in general. And now I am setting goals related to that. I have a goal of when I want to be licensed, but I have a goal for getting certified in something. I have a goal of creating this program at the school I'm working at. It's just now I have goals related to that versus like my GPA or passing a class or making my college team, whatever it could be. Those have shifted, and like we talked about in the transitions, as your identity switch, your goals switch, as you make these transitions, there's a lot of big changes. Really connect with yourself and check in with yourself and your identities at least every year. See what has changed. And for a lot of you moving from high school to college, you're going to have some big changes in those identities as you get to know yourself better. Because going to college, I know it's such a cliche to say, but you really do change a lot. You make these new friends, you join these new clubs, you start doing things that maybe you didn't do in high school, and that changes who you are, that changes your identity, and that changes who you want to be too. I'm gonna be honest, I never thought I'd be working at a college to be a counselor. Like, that was not my original goal when I started on the track I did for school. And then I didn't, then I finished college, I went into grad school, and I really found this passion, and my identities changed as I made these transitions, and I accepted these changes in myself because they were getting me to somewhere where I was happy and content with my life. And it's nice to look back and to see that I have succeeded in so many goals as I've transitioned and changed. At one point, this was a goal of mine. Being here, doing this was a goal of mine. And now I'm here. I get to set new goals, but I get to appreciate the goals I have succeeded in and obstacles I've overcome. And that's what, like, finding your identity and who you are, that's what it's all about. I mean, it's not just this random thing that you should do. It's about being able to connect with yourself and understanding what's important to you, why you do things, and who you are, because that's how you're going to get to where you want to be and who you want to be. And that doesn't mean you need to necessarily drastically change who you are or what you're doing, but it's just understanding that and connecting with yourself and seeing this identity is really important to me right now. Maybe there's something going on in your life. Maybe a parent, grandparent, guardian, or something is sick or not doing well. All of a sudden, that daughter component or that granddaughter component becomes really, really strong because that's what I'm focused on. That's what's important to me at this moment. And then at another moment, this counselor persona, this counselor identity is super important to me while I'm at work and what I'm doing with my life. And so your identities fluctuate day in and day out and year in and year out. And new identities will come in as you get to know who you are, and some identities will leave, and that's all okay too. But knowing who you are is one of the most important things. The who you are and why you do what you do, those are the top two questions of mindset. And being able to answer those, even though those answers may change all the time, being able to answer those is how you're going to be able to set goals, be able to do this mental training, and being able to be the best you can be. And maybe that best you isn't what your parents or guardians want for you or what your friends expected of you, but all that matters is it's what you want to do, and it's what makes you happy and feel connected to who you are emotionally, physically, and all of that. It's really important that way, and that's why you need to know who you are. And so, yeah, take those moments, take 2 or 3 minutes and just write down any identities that you connect to. That's me. And then mark off 2 or 3, 2 to 4 that are really salient, really important, really stand out to you. Mark those down and kind of take notice. Have that list somewhere that in a year or so you can come back and check it, even less if you would like, but you can come back and check it and make a new list and see how it's changed, see how the salient ones have shifted and why they've shifted. You can start thinking about that, and then you can set new goals, and you can set short-term or long-term goals related on those identities. And maybe there's some identities you want to have. I said one of my identities now is counselor, but that wasn't always an identity of mine, but that was an identity I wanted. So I set goals related to that to get to that identity. And maybe you have a dream job, and or maybe you want to make dean's list, or you just want to make your college team. You don't necessarily need to be a starter, but you really want to make that team. Then you can set goals based off of those dreams you have, based off of those identities you want. You can set goals off of that. So this was a bit shorter of one, but it's just really important to know who you are and those identities and taking time to connect with them, because you can become successful and really feel comfortable in who you are if you actually take time to recognize who you are and what identities you have. And going off of that, then you start setting those goals. Then you start having successful transitions. That's when you learn how to regulate your emotions, and that's any topic we do from now on or that we've already done, they all connect to this one. And that's kind of where you need to start, is just figuring out who you are. But that's not always the first step, because sometimes you're not ready for that. But once you get ready for that and you're able to connect to those identities and recognize which identities you have, you're just going to soar from there. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you all for listening to Athletes Beyond the Mind, a mental skills and sports psychology podcast. Please follow us on all social media at CTG Mindset.